Black lady humiliated by racist cops in her neighborhood, accused of theft, unaware she's a soldier. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to return home after serving your country, only to face humiliation from the people sworn to protect it? Imagine walking in your own neighborhood, feeling safe, and then, in an instant, everything turns upside down. What would you do if the very ones meant to uphold justice were the ones tearing you down? Have you ever been judged based on your appearance, even when you were in the right? How would you feel if the uniform you proudly wore to serve your country meant nothing because of the color of your skin? Imagine returning home to your family, expecting to be embraced, only to be thrown into a nightmare where your honor is questioned and your dignity stripped away. This is exactly what happened to Leah, a black woman who had just returned home after serving as a soldier abroad. Leah had risked her life abroad, only to come back home to a neighborhood she had grown up in, a place she once called safe. But what happens when the very people who are meant to protect you become the ones who destroy your peace? Leah was about to find out. It was a sunny afternoon, and Leah had just returned from a deployment that had kept her away from her family for over a year. The air smelled of home, familiar, comforting, but little did Leah know, her homecoming would soon be marred by an experience she would never forget. Can you imagine stepping off the battlefield, only to find yourself in the midst of another kind of war, right in your own neighborhood? Wearing a casual outfit of jeans and a hoodie, Leah walked down the street she had known her entire life. She was heading to the corner store to grab a snack. It was supposed to be an ordinary day, a peaceful day. But as soon as she passed the store, 2 police cars screeched to a halt beside her. Would you have ever imagined that something as simple as a walk down the street could end in chaos? Leah certainly didn't. 2 officers, one male, one female, jumped out of their cars, their faces stern, eyes cold. "Stop right there!" the male officer yelled, his voice sharp, filled with suspicion. Leah froze. What was happening? Her heart raced as confusion clouded her mind. Have you ever felt the sinking weight of uncertainty when you know you've done nothing wrong? Before she could speak, the female officer marched up to her, grabbed her arm forcefully, and yanked her to the side of the road. "Where do you think you're going?" the officer demanded, her grip tight and unyielding. Leah, struggling to remain calm, asked, "What's going on? Why are you stopping me?" Can you imagine the fear creeping in as the situation spiraled out of control? What would you do in her shoes? The male officer eyed Leah suspiciously. "We've had reports of theft in this area. You match the description," he said coldly, his words cutting through the air like a blade. Leah's breath hitched. A thief? Her? Was this really happening? Was it because of what she was wearing? Or was it simply because she was black? Leah's voice cracked as she protested. "I just got back from serving overseas. I'm not a thief." But her words fell on deaf ears. The female officer pushed her roughly against the police car, twisting her arms behind her back as if she were a hardened criminal. How would you feel if your years of sacrifice and service were ignored in an instant? The scene grew more chaotic as neighbors started to gather. Some of them whispered in disbelief, while others began filming with their phones. Why weren't they doing more? Why wasn't anyone stepping up to stop this obvious injustice? Leah's pulse pounded in her ears as her frustration grew. "I'm telling you, this is a mistake," she shouted, her voice rising above the murmurs of the crowd. But the male officer wasn't interested. "Yeah, we've heard it all before," he muttered, patting her down as though she were hiding something dangerous. How often have they said those words to others like her? How many innocent lives had they wrongfully accused? One neighbor finally stepped forward. "Hey, that's Leah. She just got back from serving our country." The officer hesitated for a brief second, but his skepticism didn't waver. He glanced at the crowd, but instead of backing off, he doubled down. Was his ego too big to admit he might be wrong? What happens when pride blinds you to the truth? Leah's patience was wearing thin. She gritted her teeth, trying to stay composed, but it was becoming harder by the second. How much could you take before you snapped? Leah's military training taught her to stay calm under pressure, but this was different. This wasn't combat, it was humiliation. Just then, Leah's phone buzzed in her pocket. She managed to free one hand and answer. It was her father. "Dad, they've got me in cuffs. I didn't do anything," she whispered, her voice trembling with anger and disbelief. Her father, a retired soldier himself, was furious. "Stay calm, I'm on my way," he said before hanging up. Minutes felt like hours as Leah waited, her heart pounding, until finally, her father arrived. His commanding presence immediately drew attention. Dressed in his own military attire, he stormed up to the scene, his eyes blazing with righteous fury. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice thunderous. Could they deny the truth now, with another soldier standing right in front of them? The male officer opened his mouth to explain, but Leah's father cut him off. "This is my daughter. She just came back from serving her country, and this is how you treat her? Is it because she's black? Because she's walking in her own neighborhood?" Can you see the irony in this? A soldier treated like a criminal, while the real injustice was unfolding right in front of everyone's eyes. The crowd had grown larger by now, and more voices were calling out in support of Leah. "She didn't do anything," one neighbor shouted. "This is wrong," another added. How many more voices does it take before the truth is heard? The female officer shifted uncomfortably, glancing nervously at the growing crowd. "We were just following protocol," she mumbled. But Leah's father wasn't having it. Protocol? Is it protocol to humiliate innocent people? Is it protocol to assume guilt before knowing the facts? His words rang out like gunfire. Would they dare to argue with him now, knowing they had been caught in their own web of prejudice? As the tension mounted, the male officer finally backed down. He unlocked the cuffs from Leah's wrists, but the damage was already done. How do you erase humiliation? How do you make up for lost dignity? "We didn't know she was a soldier," the officer stammered, but Leah's father wasn't satisfied. "Does it matter?" he shot back. "She shouldn't have to be a soldier to be treated with respect." Leah stood there, rubbing her wrists, her face a mixture of anger, relief, and exhaustion. How would you feel if, after everything you'd been through, you still had to fight for basic respect in your own country? This wasn't over. The crowd, now emboldened, continued filming, and Leah's father made sure to let the officers know this wasn't the end. "You'll be hearing from us," he said, his voice icy. Would these cops ever face real consequences? Would this story end here, or would it spark something bigger, a conversation, a change? Leah, though shaken, held her head high as she walked away with her father by her side. Her battle scars ran deep, but this wound, the wound of injustice, would take time to heal. Will things ever change? Will this neighborhood ever be a place where Leah or anyone like her can walk without fear of being wrongfully accused? So, what would you have done if you were Leah? How would you feel if the country you served treated you like an outsider the moment you returned? Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay tuned for more thought-provoking stories like this one. Let's talk about this in the comments. How do we stop racial profiling in our communities?
If you've watched this far, comment which country you're watching from and leave a 100 in the comment section because you are type of person that likes to finish what they started. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to get notified whenever we drop new videos.